I slipped into the sheer dress I had bought on impulse 2 weeks ago. It wasn't the kind of thing I usually wore, but tonight felt different. Tonight, I was going to have fun, no matter what. The dress clung to my body, daring and delicate, and for a moment, I felt a rush of confidence. My reflection stared back at me, not a woman who was afraid to take risks, but one who was ready to embrace the night. I glanced at my boyfriend, Alex, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, his eyes fixed on his phone, a slight frown on his face. "Are you ready?" I asked, though I could already feel the tension in the air. He didn't look up. "Yeah, I guess." I raised an eyebrow and walked over to him, my heels clicking on the floor. I stood in front of him, waiting for his reaction. "Don't you think I look good?" He shifted his gaze to me, his eyes scanning me from head to toe, but I saw no approval in them. "You look fine." I couldn't help but notice the tightness in his jaw, the way his hands clenched around his phone. He wasn't pleased, not by my appearance, not by anything. His expression was a mixture of concern and disapproval, something I'd become all too familiar with lately. It was as if the dress, the music, the excitement of the night were all too much for him to handle. I sighed and sat down beside him, trying to mask the frustration creeping up inside me. "Alex, what's going on with you? You've been acting distant all day." He finally put his phone down and turned to me, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Nothing. It's just... I don't know. I don't like it when you wear things like that. You're drawing attention to yourself, and I don't like it." I felt my stomach tighten. There it was. The jealousy. The possessiveness. It was always there, but it seemed to be getting worse. I couldn't help but laugh, but it wasn't the kind of laugh I'd wanted. It was the kind of laugh that sounded like a sigh, a realization. "If you were confident, you'd let me enjoy myself tonight. But instead, you're here telling me what to wear and how to act." He stood up abruptly, his hand gripping the edge of the dresser as if he was trying to hold himself together. "I'm just looking out for you. You're my girlfriend. I don't want anyone else staring at you, especially not the kind of guys who come to places like this." "Come on, Alex," I said, standing up as well. "It's just a club. I'm here with you. I'm not doing anything wrong." His eyes hardened. I know what kind of guys go to those places, and I don't trust them. I rolled my eyes, my patience running thin. "You don't trust me, you mean? You don't trust me to make my own decisions? To be in control of my own actions?" His face flushed with anger, but I could see the hurt behind his eyes. He didn't want to admit it, but it was there, the fear. The insecurity that had been simmering beneath the surface of our relationship for months. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had been trying to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation, but tonight something inside me snapped. "You don't get it, do you? You think I'm going to go out and flirt with everyone just because I'm wearing this dress? I just want to have fun. You should want me to have fun." Alex took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling as he looked at me, his expression softening slightly. "I just don't want you getting hurt." I crossed my arms, shaking my head. "I don't need you to protect me, Alex. I need you to trust me. I need you to let me breathe." The silence between us was deafening. The weight of his doubts, his fears, was suffocating, and I couldn't carry it anymore. "I'm going," I said, turning toward the door. "You're going to the club? In that?" His voice was full of disbelief, a tinge of anger slipping through. "Yes, I am," I said, my voice firm. "I'm going to enjoy my night, with or without you." I reached for my purse, grabbing my keys, and opened the door. Before I stepped out, I turned back to him. "I'll see you later, Alex. But don't expect me to keep compromising for someone who doesn't trust me." I didn't wait for a response. I slammed the door behind me and walked down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. As I entered the club, the music hit me like a wave, and I felt the tension leave my body. I was here to enjoy myself. No more excuses. No more apologies. I wasn't going to let Alex's insecurities ruin my night. The lights were flashing in a rhythm that matched the beat of my heart. The crowd was buzzing, people laughing, dancing, living in the moment. I moved through the sea of people, feeling free, liberated. But even in the midst of the chaos, I couldn't shake the thought that lingered in the back of my mind: would Alex be here in a few minutes, trying to drag me home? I shook it off. I didn't need to think about him right now. I needed to be myself. I found an open space on the dance floor, letting the music take over. The rhythm was intoxicating, and I closed my eyes, losing myself in it. I could feel the eyes of strangers on me, but this time, it didn't bother me. I wasn't looking for validation, I wasn't seeking attention. I was just living. But as I opened my eyes, I saw him. Alex was standing at the edge of the dance floor, his eyes locked on me. He was watching me, but it wasn't the way I wanted him to. There was no admiration in his gaze. Only suspicion. I tried to ignore him, but it was impossible. His presence, his disapproval, hung in the air between us like a shadow. The music pulsed through me as I continued to dance, my body moving with the beat. I wasn't thinking about anything, just the rhythm, the freedom. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't escape the feeling that Alex was still watching me. I could feel his eyes boring into my back, his gaze heavy with something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't admiration or desire, it was something darker, something possessive. I took a deep breath and tried to push it out of my mind, but the energy of the club began to feel different. The air was thick with tension, and it wasn't just the flashing lights or the noise. It was Alex. I could feel him, like a presence I couldn't escape. And then, just as I was starting to lose myself again, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, and there he was, standing just a few feet away, his face drawn tight, eyes stormy. "Can we talk?" His voice was low, almost too quiet for the music. But the tension in his words was unmistakable. I froze for a moment, not sure if I was ready to hear what he had to say, or if I even wanted to. But the energy between us was already too charged to ignore. I nodded reluctantly, and he led me through the crowd to a quieter corner of the club. "Why are you acting like this?" he demanded as soon as we were out of earshot from the others. His voice was sharp, cutting through the noise. "Why did you have to wear that dress? Why did you have to come here, to this place?" I looked at him, stunned. "Are you serious right now? This is about my dress?" I gestured down at the sheer fabric that clung to my body, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief wash over me. "You're really going to act like this over what I'm wearing? This is who I am, Alex. If you can't handle that, then maybe we have a bigger problem." He looked around the club, his eyes darting over the people, and I saw the jealousy in them, boiling beneath the surface. "You don't get it. You don't understand how it feels to see you dancing with other guys. I'm not some guy who's okay with that. I can't just sit back and watch you." "Watch me what?" I interrupted, my voice rising now. "Have fun? Enjoy myself? Because that's what this is about, Alex. It's not about you not trusting me. It's about you not trusting yourself. You're scared of what other people might think. You're scared I'll leave you for someone else. He recoiled as if I had slapped him, and for a second, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had come. You're being unfair. I'm just trying to protect you. Protect me? I laughed bitterly, feeling the weight of his words hang between us. Protect me from what? Having a good time? Having fun? I'm not your property, Alex. I'm not some fragile thing you can hide away when you're too insecure to trust me. His face flushed with anger, and I could see him struggling to control his emotions. He opened his mouth to say something, but I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't, Alex. I'm done having this conversation with you. You need to figure out what's going on with you before you start blaming me for everything. For a long moment, we stood there, locked in a silent standoff. I could feel my chest rising and falling with each angry breath. The club's music seemed distant now, the bright lights too harsh, too glaring. But the real heat, the real tension, was right here, between us. Finally, he spoke again, his voice quieter, almost pleading. I don't want to lose you, you know that, right? I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't want to lose him either, at least, not the version of him I had fallen in love with. But this version of Alex? The jealous, possessive one? I wasn't sure how much more I could take. I don't want to lose myself, Alex, I said quietly, the words coming out softer than I had intended. I don't want to lose who I am just to make you feel better. I'm not asking you to change who you are, but I need you to trust me. If you can't do that, then what are we even doing here? He stood there, staring at me, his eyes searching my face like he was trying to find some hint, some sign that things could go back to how they were before. But all I could see was the same insecurity, the same fear that had been growing between us for months. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, until I couldn't take it anymore. I turned away from him and started to walk back toward the dance floor. I didn't want to keep arguing, didn't want to keep fighting. I just needed to get away, to feel something other than this. I could hear Alex calling my name behind me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Not now. I had made up my mind. The music swallowed me whole as I stepped back onto the dance floor, but the feeling wasn't the same. The freedom I had felt before was gone, replaced with a knot in my stomach. I tried to dance, to lose myself in the music, but every time I glanced over my shoulder, I saw him standing there, watching me. He hadn't left, and somehow, that made everything worse. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to let go and enjoy the night, but all I could think about was Alex and the mess we were slowly becoming. Could we fix this? Could he ever trust me the way I needed him to? I didn't have an answer. And as the night stretched on, the only thing I knew for sure was that we were at a crossroads. And I wasn't sure which path we were headed down. The night seemed to drag on as I continued to dance, trying my best to ignore the chaos of emotions churning inside me. Every beat of the music was louder, the flashing lights more disorienting, and yet, I felt more disconnected with each passing second. I wasn't sure what I was trying to escape from anymore, Alex's presence, the weight of our argument, or just the gnawing feeling that something in our relationship had shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. I caught glimpses of Alex from time to time, standing at the edge of the dance floor, staring at me like a silent sentinel. His eyes were locked on me, never moving, never blinking, and I could see the frustration radiating off him. I wanted to walk over to him, to ask if he was okay, but part of me was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if we spoke again. He had already made it clear that he didn't trust me. But it wasn't just about the club, was it? It was about control. It always had been. I could feel the tension between us like a tightrope, and I was walking it, careful not to lose my balance. The club felt suffocating now. The crowd, the music, the people, all of it seemed like a distant buzz. I had never been one to rely on others for validation, but tonight, I felt more alone than ever. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. I pulled it out quickly, almost too eager to get away from the suffocating atmosphere around me. The message was from Sarah. "Are you okay?" she asked. I stared at the text for a moment, the weight of the words sinking in. Sarah had always been the one I turned to when things got tough, the one who could always make me see things clearly. But could she help me now? I quickly typed back, "I don't know, Sarah. I don't know if I'm okay. I'm with Alex, and everything feels wrong." There was a long pause before she responded, but when she did, her reply was simple yet pointed. "You need to talk to him. Figure out what's going on before it's too late." I didn't respond right away. Part of me didn't want to hear it, didn't want to face the reality of what Sarah was suggesting. But I knew deep down that she was right. I needed to have that conversation with Alex, no matter how hard it would be. I turned my phone off, tucking it back into my pocket, and made my way back toward the bar. I needed something to calm my nerves, something to steady the tremble in my hands. The bartender gave me a knowing look as I ordered a drink, and I couldn't help but feel self-conscious under his gaze. I needed to focus. After taking a long sip, I tried to push aside the noise in my head, focusing instead on the drink in my hand. But then, I felt a hand on my shoulder. A familiar touch. I turned, startled, and found myself face to face with Alex. His eyes were dark, clouded with something that almost looked like regret, but there was still a sharpness in them that made me uneasy. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice low. "Again?" I didn't mean for the words to come out so sharp, but they did. "You've already said everything you needed to say, Alex." His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I wondered if he was going to lash out at me. But instead, he softened, his shoulders slumping slightly as if the weight of the world had just fallen on him. "I was wrong," he said, his voice quieter now. "I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. I shouldn't have tried to control you." I blinked, not sure I had heard him right. I had spent so much time waiting for him to apologize, waiting for him to take responsibility for the way he had treated me, and now here it was. But still, something felt off. The apology didn't feel as genuine as it should have. It didn't feel like he was owning up to everything, just the surface-level parts. "I don't know if you understand what you're apologizing for, Alex," I said, my voice trembling despite myself. "It's not just about the dress. It's not just about tonight. It's about everything. About how you try to control me, how you make me feel like I'm always doing something wrong when I'm just trying to live my life. How I'm never enough for you." He reached out as if to touch me, but I stepped back, feeling the coldness between us. "I never meant to make you feel that way," he said, his voice strained. "I love you. I do. You just what?" I cut him off, my frustration bubbling over. "You just can't stand the thought of me being independent? Of me having fun without you? I need you to understand something, Alex. I'm not your possession. I'm not here to make you feel better about your insecurities. I have a life outside of you, and you need to trust me enough to let me live it." I could see the shock in his eyes, but there was something else too, something darker, like a flicker of anger that hadn't fully dissipated. "I don't want to lose you," he said, the words coming out more as a plea than a statement. "I don't want to lose you either," I said, my voice softening just slightly. "But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep walking on eggshells around you, pretending everything is okay when it's not." We stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of everything hanging between us. The club felt even louder now, the music pounding in my chest, but it didn't matter anymore. Nothing in this place could drown out the silence that had settled between us. Finally, Alex spoke, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. "Do you think we can fix this?" I didn't know how to answer. The truth was, I wasn't sure anymore. But what I did know was that I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong. Not with him, not with us. "I don't know," I said, my heart heavy in my chest. "I really don't know." And with that, I turned and walked away, the weight of my own uncertainty pressing down on me with every step. The next few days felt like a blur. I went through the motions, work, errands, meals, but everything seemed hollow, as if I were floating through my own life. The conversation with Alex at the club had left a mark on me, one I couldn't quite erase. He'd apologized, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that his words didn't feel like they came from a place of true understanding. They were just words, empty and floating in the air, with no real commitment behind them. I spent hours replaying the events over and over in my mind, trying to pinpoint where things had gone wrong. When did we stop being the couple we used to be? Was it when we first started dating, when I had made the mistake of thinking I could change him? Or was it when I started compromising, giving up little pieces of myself to keep the peace? I tried to reach out to Sarah a few times, but every time I picked up my phone, my fingers hovered over the screen, unsure of what to say. How could I explain what was happening when I didn't fully understand it myself? I didn't even know if I wanted advice or just someone to tell me I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I did. It wasn't until I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, that I realized the one thing I hadn't been doing was looking at myself. Really looking at myself. I had spent so much time focusing on what Alex thought of me, on what he needed from me, that I had lost sight of who I was, who I wanted to be. I had let him shape me in ways I didn't even realize. I took a deep breath, running my fingers through my hair, and something in me clicked. That night, I made a decision. I called him. Alex answered after the second ring, his voice tense, like he'd been waiting for this call. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than I expected. "Can we talk?" I asked, the words coming out before I even had the chance to think about them. I knew this was it, the moment I had been putting off. The moment we would either decide to fix things or walk away for good. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, and the line went dead. I stood there for a few moments, unsure of what I was feeling. A part of me was still angry, still hurt by everything that had happened. But another part of me knew I had to do this, even if it meant facing the painful truth. When he arrived, I led him into the living room, the space between us thick with the tension we had both been avoiding. He sat down on the couch, his hands clasped tightly together. His eyes were pained, and I could see the vulnerability in them, but it wasn't enough to erase the doubts that had taken root in my heart. "I've been thinking," I started, my voice steady, though I could feel my chest tightening with each word. "About everything. About us." Alex nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. "I've been thinking, too." I sighed, looking away for a moment. I didn't want to keep pretending that everything could be fixed just because we were both willing to talk. This was bigger than that. "I don't think I can keep doing this, Alex," I said, the words coming out with a force that surprised even me. "I can't keep living in a relationship where I'm constantly questioning myself. Where I'm always second-guessing everything I do because I'm afraid it will upset you. I'm not happy, and I don't think you are either." His eyes widened, a flicker of fear flashing across his face. "Wait, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I need more than this," I continued. "I need to feel like I can breathe, like I can be myself without feeling like I'm walking on eggshells." And right now, I don't feel like I can be that with you. He opened his mouth to say something, but I held up my hand, silencing him. I don't want to blame you, Alex. This isn't all on you. I've let it happen. I've let myself change for you, for us, and I've lost who I am in the process. But I can't keep doing that. I can't keep losing pieces of myself, hoping you'll love me for who I've become. I need to find myself again. There was a long silence between us, the kind that spoke volumes. The kind that made it clear this conversation was more than just words, it was the end of something. The end of the person I was when I was with him. The end of a relationship that had once felt like home but had slowly become a cage. I never wanted to hurt you, Alex said finally, his voice almost a whisper. I know you didn't, I replied, the tears welling up in my eyes before I could stop them. But sometimes, love isn't enough. And sometimes, we love people in ways that hold them back instead of helping them grow. He stood up suddenly, his chair scraping across the floor as he moved toward me. But I stepped back, shaking my head. No. I think this is it. Alex looked as though he had been punched in the gut. Are you sure? His voice cracked as he asked, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the rawness of his emotions. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I'm sure, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to go. I need to figure out who I am without you. There was a finality to my words that left no room for argument. I could see the pain in his eyes, but it didn't change the truth. It didn't change the fact that we were both broken in ways we couldn't fix together. I walked to the door, my heart heavy but resolute. I didn't look back as I closed it behind me. And just like that, the door to our relationship was shut, leaving behind only the echo of what we had once been. The love we shared had been real, but it wasn't enough. It had never been enough. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know what I would do next, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free to be me. Free to find my own path. And that was enough.